Good morning. That was a wonderful introduction. As was just introduced, my name is Cathal Goran. I'm a professor at the School of Computing at Dublin City University, and I'm here to talk to you about something called life logging. And it's kind of the opposite of what Ben was talking about this morning. Ben was saying less technology. I'm saying we're going to use as much as we can. We don't even know why yet. Okay, that's what we're talking about in terms of life logging, because it's such a new thing. But the idea of gathering a lot of data and storing your memories isn't all that new. Look at cave paintings. Okay, people stored memories on walls when they could. People stored memories in diaries along the way. So we're now looking at a point of recording your life in as much detail as you can. And this, of course, has many, many challenges. Things like privacy and security of data. We'll get back to those later on. But we're interested in life logging technology, sensing, recording, hardware, software to extract as much as we can about your life experience. And then, why? Using that in some kind of a positive manner. So life logging is using mobile, wearable devices and informational sensors to understand, automatically record as much as it can about your life activities and generate a complete and accurate trace or a model of what you've done in as much detail as we can. And that's not that difficult to do. Put on wearable cameras, put on GoPros, put on sensor devices to monitor your heart rate, extract every web page you ever visit. We can all do that easily, but the challenge actually is to extract value. And as you'll see as I go through the talk today, I'll be covering about 9 years of research in our research centre, and the challenges of getting this knowledge extracted from this data is immense. But life logging itself has been around for a number of years as a term. There was a book called Your Life Uploaded, or Total Recall, released about 6 or 7 years ago by a guy called Gordon Bell. Gordon Bell, we'll see on the next slide. And it proposes why life logging is a good thing. In the era of life logging, you'll be able to summon up any memory or past experience. Okay? By interacting with a digital surrogate of your own memory, you can go back and you can find anything. What was that bottle of wine you had at your Christmas party 3 years ago? If you wanted to find that, you'll be able to find that. What was the person's name I spoke to? What was I doing X number of times ago? How often have I drunk coffee today so far? That kind of thing. Compare that to last year, etc. Okay? It will change the way we work and learn, improve your health, change your relationships with people, and change total social interactions. Because for once, there'll be a complete and accurate log of your life activities. So let's see how this works. And it'll change, according to the guys in the book, and it kind of makes sense, it'll change what it means to be human. Okay? Because you will have this absolute record of everything you've done. It may be a private record, but you still can't forget necessarily about some things you're embarrassed about, or it'll always be there in a record. And if that record exists after you die, somebody's going to see it. Okay? So this is happening because of wearable sensing. It's kind of inevitable. Quantified self is a starting point for what we think life logging is going to be. And it's been around for about 11 years. Gordon Bell, pictured here from Microsoft, started a project in Microsoft about 11 years ago to record his entire life experience in as much detail as he can, including wearable cameras like the one I'm wearing here, microphones. He records as much as he can. Everything about his books, his papers, what he reads, all gets put into a database system. And this was really hard 11 years ago. Okay? He had secretaries to do it for him. Okay? He worked in Microsoft. There was resources behind this. Moving into today's world, it's getting easier to do this ourselves. So in terms of the research we do in my university, we see biohacking, quantified self, and life logging as slightly different things. Timu had a slide earlier on that compared biohacking and quantified self. When we bring life logging into that, we extend it a bit more. In terms of quantified self, you're deciding what you want to record and extracting knowledge from that, in terms of then biohacking some improvement in your own lifestyle. In our view, life logging is kind of different. Life logging is where we try to digitize as much as we can. And this is a criticism that we have faced for the last 9 years of doing this research, when people say, why? Okay? Why record as much as you can? And our answer back is, well, we don't know exactly why, but we will build technologies to extract knowledge from the data. So we gather as much data as we can at any point in time. And as we progress forward, and as more and more people become active in the area of life logging, then we will have new technologies coming out of this. That's our belief. So what is it? How do we do it? So it's basically generating thousands of sensor data outputs every day, in terms of wearable cameras like this one here, which can generate about 2,000 images a day automatically. Okay? And you're probably thinking now, well, there's a problem. How do I look at 2,000 pictures a day? Okay, so we'll get back to that later on. Hours of audio or video, if you want to do that. We actually find people don't like us recording audio, so we don't do it. But you can do it. It's very certainly easy to do. Video, tens of thousands of hours of sensor readings. We do biometrics. We do EEG sensing. One of my colleagues has built a portable EEG device, a multi-sensor EEG device that we can wear around. It doesn't look good, but we can use it. Communications, our web pages, our accesses, our communications with other people, and all of our social interactions in the real world. As much as we can get sensed in rich detail. And for us, the challenge is to take this kind of data, like this visual data, and make use of it. To understand that we're arguing with a taxi driver in Beijing, that we're shaking hands with Espen in Norway, that we're having lunch with colleagues. Okay? To understand this automatically from the data is our key challenge. And why do we do that? To provide knowledge, okay? To empower us in ways we've never been empowered before. And there's two sides to this empowering. Let me see if this works. Yeah, so there's this side here, quantified self, which we're all used to in terms of this community, where we're able to enhance our performance, enhance our healthcare, enhance our social interactions by having access to data. And that's pretty much, we know what this is all about. Where we're coming in is in terms of memory over here, where we want to enhance the human memory experience. How can we build tools that allow us to analyze, understand our past activities, enhance memory, upgrading your recall, and providing assistive technologies? So one of our projects we're working on right now is in terms of building memory tools to support a teenager who doesn't have access to short-term memory. How can we build tools to support that teenager going through daily life, where even communications with people is a challenge because he can't remember many aspects of what he's just done. So this is part of the process. How can we use technologies like Google Glass and life logging to build assistive technologies? So we're interested in memory. We know quantified self. We've done this many times in the past ourselves, everybody here. But this is what we care about, memory. And when thinking about human memory and how we can build assistive technologies, there's really three ways we can assist people in terms of their memory. We can assist people in terms of recall and retrieval, to find anything you want from your past automatically. Okay? To find, as I said at the start, that bottle of wine you had 3 years ago that was really great. To find where you met somebody at a certain point in time, 5, 10 years ago. To be able to go in, access something that may be forgotten in here, but the software has the answer when you need to access it. It's not about not forgetting, it's about supporting retrieval. There's a very distinctive difference here. If you cannot remember or don't want to query something, the system just has the data there. So Google doesn't allow you to know everything in the world. Google allows you to answer questions when you want to query something. So it's about recall and retrieval. It's also about reminiscence. How can we go back over our past data, extract stories, narratives, and then use that to share with other people and reminisce with other people? Can we do this in groups of people together, reminiscing about your past memories, or can we just do this ourselves? Okay? And how does this interact? How do we build these kind of systems? And how do we build reflective systems? Quantified self, essentially on steroids. Detailed quantified self, where I can come along and go, okay, how often did I have coffee recently before I did an examination which I didn't do very well in afterwards? That kind of thing. Okay? How often did I see the Coca-Cola logo and go for Coca-Cola after meetings with my friends when I was in the city centre outside of my hometown? That kind of thing. Okay? That kind of detailed analysis. There's infinite number of queries you can ask here. Okay? So that's what we're interested in terms of reflection. So along the way, we've built a whole lot of different kind of systems, and we build a lot of prototypes. We're a research centre, which means we don't have very much money. Okay? We're not a large organisation. We have PhD students, we have research assistants, we have master's students, all building different kinds of tools that we think are interesting. And this is one example. It's a prototype digital memory software that visualizes your day, your week, your month in terms of colour. So by having a small camera, a wearable camera, we break every day up into minutes, minute blocks, and every block gets a dominant colour. And even because we're a research centre, how do you choose that colour is a research task, okay? It's not average colour of what you see, because average colour is always going to be grey. It's going to be a dominant colour, and how do you choose that? And then, given any minute cell, what we can do is we can actually click on that cell and get the image behind it, what you were doing at that point in time. And then by analysing this, you can see in a couple of seconds your life activities of a week because you know what the different colors mean in your life. Okay, very simple. That's one very simple example. But really, when we want to go into memory, we have to consider how human memory works. And really what we try and do is we try to generate surrogate episodic memories. In our own human memory, this event today is an episodic memory entry for you. You'll remember this as an event. Okay? Inside the event, you'll remember the different interactions you had, and maybe next year you don't remember them as well. 10 years later, you remember you went to this event, that's it. Okay? So, episodic memory, the events and episodes we experience. And we really want to take this aspect, there's a whole summary of human memory, take this aspect of human memory and build technologies. And that means we need to understand episodic memory, understand how to build query mechanisms to generate a surrogate behind that. And that means then we have to build software, and loads of different types of software. And this is where our research center has been active in developing software. This software here is called Loggerman. Not a wonderful name, but basically what it does is it records everything to do with your computer interactions. It records every mouse movement you make, every keystroke. Every time you change window, it takes a screenshot of that window. It also takes screenshots as you go through every 10 seconds. It generates everything we can do. And one of the side products of that is we can then identify if somebody other than you is using your computer and shut it down, okay? Within about 20 seconds. So that kind of analysis, of detailed analysis we do to generate data for our life-logging work. Another example, we do a lot of work in visualization. Since we're a research center, a lot of our resources, a lot of our people are interested in human interface design. So here's a nice looking interface that allows us to analyze data over a long period of time, map back to in parts of the environment or parts of the city that you're in. Also map back to things like, when were you seeing certain things like display advertisements? When were you eating food? When were you communicating with people? So an example of this kind of work is we have a project with colleagues in New Zealand who are interested in understanding school children's exposure to fast food advertising and the impact that has on their fast food consumption. So what they've done is they've got 200 kids to wear these kind of cameras for a week each. We're in university, so there's a lot of ethical approval required behind all of this. And then they can use these kind of systems to say, okay, we understand now better about fast food diet of children in New Zealand and the impact of advertising on their fast food consumption. Because we didn't know that before. Very simple example. So, part of the challenge we always face is that this isn't like quantified self where I can decide to track my heart rate and I can see it tomorrow, okay? There's a big task or effort required to get the data out of this data, to get usable knowledge out of the data that we're gathering. And we have to do 4 different things. We have to sense, okay? We have to put on sensors right now. We have to sense in high fidelity. Sense the imagery we see, sense the audio, sense the location, sense the heart rate, even sense the EEG, sense the communications, as much as we can. It's not particularly easy to do. We then have to segment this data because this is a continual stream of data, just like your heart rate is. We have to segment out events like, if I want to find this talk I'm giving 10 years later, I'll have to have the software to segment out, I'm giving this talk right now. How do we segment out the data? What's the unit of retrieval for any query into the system? How then can we index? How can we make this pictures? If I maybe have 200 pictures of a darkened room right here, how can the software extract enough knowledge from that to say, I'm giving essentially a lecture? Okay? And how can I find that later on? Which is the hardest part, by the way, this. And then how can we build interaction mechanisms? Everything you'll see from our few slides coming up is web-based interactions. Desktop system, desktop computers, maybe some mobile devices. That doesn't work because if you try to access your memory, you don't have to go to a computer to do it. You think about it, you access your memory. And how do we build supporting tools? We don't have an answer yet. How do we build supporting tools that run just like this? If I'm wearing Google Glass, I can start this process, okay? I can have ubiquitous access. And how do we build tools that work like that? So let's look briefly at these options. Sensing. I mentioned Google Glass. This is the best device we have so far, okay? Not particularly reliable. Sorry if there's anybody from Google here. They break very easily. They're very expensive. Please give us cheaper ones soon. But these are great because these follow our head movements, okay? This sees what I see. We can trigger photo capture. You can write software for glass that actually triggers capture as you want to trigger capture. Tie that with an EEG device to identify interest levels of what you're seeing, and then you get really interesting capture. That's one of the things that we're doing right now. So we want sensor devices that can extend as much as we can. And I know some of you are thinking right now, yeah, you know, life experience is more than pictures and sounds, okay? Yes, it is. We cannot sense your emotions, okay? But one of the tenets of our research that we do is that you don't have to do any manual annotation. Once you have to manually say, I'm happy, I'm sad, I'm hungry, whatever, once you've got to manually do this, people stop interacting very quickly. Everything has got to be automatic, okay? So no manual intervention required. So to get around that, we gather a lot of data, okay? This is what I typically gather most of the time, wearable cameras of some sort. We have a really cool Panasonic 4K wearable camera that I bought in Japan recently, which means you can then zoom into some part of what you're looking at in the past and actually zoom into detail and see the price of some product on the shop shelf, that kind of thing, even if you don't remember it yourself. We record our activities, we record our information accesses, our locations, and then various other aspects of our life. Okay? And this takes a bit of effort to do, but since you don't have to do any manual annotation, it mostly comes back to wearing sensors, which is easier than actually doing something. It goes into a secure personal life log. And this is really, really important. There's a lot of stuff I'm not even going to get a chance to talk about today in terms of security. Okay? Think about what this data does. If you have automatically gathered data about everything you see, hear, and do, for the first time ever, that exists in a piece of software, in a database somewhere. Whereas if you go through life without having life logging technologies, you can ignore, you can forget, you can deny. Okay? With life logging, it's more difficult to deny because it exists there already. And we've found by doing our, obviously, years of experimentation, nobody's bothered to go in and delete something. Okay? It just goes in there. It's one of the, in my case, 16 million images in there. Okay? Nobody's ever going to see it, hopefully. Okay? That's the way we think about it. But really, for us in terms of the research centre, the biggest challenge is visual life logging. We can extract spoken words from sound easily enough. There's off-the-shelf tools for that. What we cannot do very easily is extract semantic knowledge, the non-quantified self-knowledge. Extract semantic knowledge from what we see, from what images show us. So how do we know what's in this image here? This is difficult to do because there's no limit to what you see in daily life. Every car you see in an image is from different angles. Car outside, car inside. It's still a car, okay? So how can you build software to analyze this for 2,000 to 5,000 images per day? Maybe that's video, and we see videos being a sequence of images. Okay? This is a big challenge, and this is what we're interested in. We're going to look at this coming up. So my life log in numbers, I have about 16.5 million wearable camera images, which is really important, not because I can tell you all the benefits of this, but because we can build a software over this, because this archive doesn't exist anywhere else. We have 9 years of data, okay, in terms of visual data and location data. We've 1 year now of computer interactions. Every mouse swipe, every keyboard stroke, the strength of every keyboard stroke is gathered. Everything we can gather gets gathered by the Loggerman software you saw earlier on, which if you want to use is available, just do a web search. It's free. 80 million heartbeats in the last 2 years, roughly, with GSR, galvanic skin response, which we use as a surrogate of stress levels. So if you go back and look at my galvanic skin response right now, it's higher than it'll be in 20 minutes' time when I'm sitting back with a cup of water or something. And then 10 years of location log, millions of GPS points. And since we're academics, we have a different output. We have 70 peer-reviewed papers in this area. If you're really interested in what we do, you can just do a search for Google Scholar and my name, and you get access to a whole lot of papers. And we built 12 first-generation prototype software we're going to look at now. So, easy to gather data. Easy to make this. Just put on a sensor, wear a watch, install Loggerman, whatever you want to do, it's easy. Challenge now is segmenting, indexing, and interacting. Let's just look at images. 2,000 a day looks like this, roughly. Do you really have half an hour every night to look at 2,000 pictures? Do you even want to do that? No, you don't, okay? I never, ever look at the pictures come off this camera stream, okay? Unless something really, really important happened. But we have to then segment. Take this data and make it look like this automatically. So software that'll look at all the things you did, look at the changes in the color, changes in the sensor data, changes in the lighting, and say, here's all the different things you did. These ones are more important because they contain faces. That kind of simple analysis. Very simple event segmentation is not a challenge to do. Even the software on the market right now, and I should have said this at the very start, This may seem strange, but this device here is called a Narrative Clip from a company called Narrative in Sweden. Many of you probably know them. $179. You can buy this already. This takes 2,000 images a day, goes into a smartphone app, looks like that, and does event segmentation. So this phase of the work is on the marketplace right now. So this is happening. But then taking it a bit further, we built software called the eyewear platform, which does segmenting of events, chooses dominant colors, but also then allows us to do concept filtering. So I can take my view of this week or this 10 days and say, okay, show me when I was using computers. And suddenly out come the computers. Show me when I was eating food, and you get the food eating. By having the automatic analysis tools we'll see in a second. Then building proper systems, usable systems like this that we can actually use for people with memory difficulties. We can actually allow people to use this in the real world, segments your life up into moments, and then for any moment you link to the most similar moment in terms of the sensor data. And then you can browse through your past history, which is great, but because another point to mention is that our background is in search engines. My background is a PhD in search engines, so we're interested in the search tools. And we found that as you get so much data, you cannot browse, okay? You can browse your heart rate data by going back week by week by week, but with this data you can't. There's too much data there. So what you really want to do is you want to do searching. And we did some experiments on this a long time ago. We took 2.5 years of LifeLog, took the LifeLogger, got him to go and find 50 most important events in that time period, and we found that when you browse, you only find it a quarter of the time. When you search, you find what you're interested in 3/4 of the time, and you find it 10 times faster. Okay? So searching is a very basic technology we need to use here. Okay? And it's difficult to do. Okay? As we'll see, we've shown segmentation, the enrichment is what extracts knowledge from the data to build the search tools. Allows us to search it, and then to build the supporting interfaces. And this is difficult. As in, this is an unsolved research problem in the world, okay, how to do this properly. If you want to see the state of the art, if you use an Android phone, and if you take pictures on your Android phone and are uploaded to Google Drive, you go into the Google search box and do a search for find my photographs of dogs in Tokyo. It has analyzed, Google has analyzed your images and has extracted concepts like dog, locations it knows, and it can answer that query for you. Okay, that's kind of where we're at in terms of research right now. And the challenge for us is to extract semantic knowledge to support recall, retrieval, to support reminiscence, and to support reflection. Okay, this is our challenge. It's not easy because take these images, like this one here, and understand that this is Aidan Doherty, my ex-colleague, in my university, in an office setting, in conversation, indoors, talking about a research paper. How do we build that kind of technology? And then how do we make it accessible as if it's a diary entry? And it's not easy. It's using raw sensors to extract the why, the when, the where, the what of your life activity, to be able to take the data and say, I was shopping for a coat last week in Helsinki. Because that's what we query. There's something in research, in academic research, called a semantic gap. We talk in terms of coats and shopping. The system sees pixels. And how do you bridge that semantic, that meaning gap? So we use deep learning. One of our postdocs, he does this kind of work. He takes a picture. He has software that analyzes the picture and says what's in it. Okay? So in this case, the picture is him sitting at the computer in our university, and the system says that there's a desktop computer there, there's a monitor, there's a screen, there's a disk, there's a notebook, there's a mouse, there's a laptop, there's a printer. Okay? 9 out of those 10 are correct. Okay? That's artificial intelligence operating over image content, like here, image content, to extract value and meaning. Okay? And that is academic state of the art, probably not as good as Google's state of the art. But by using this, then the challenge for us is to recognize life activities. And these are the 16 most enjoyable life activities based on surveys. Okay? The research paper is here from 2004. So we have this as a starting point. How can we identify these activities automatically from wearable sensors? How can we know when you were praying? How can we know when you were eating, exercising? And can we extract this knowledge from imagery, but also heart rates, activities, accelerations, locations, sounds in the environment, to build these kind of tools? And it's not that difficult to actually do this reasonably well. We're a university, so we can't do this. We're not allowed. Okay? Ethics approval doesn't let us identify intimate relations. But If we can do this, then we can start considering the use cases. Remember recall, which is search engines, reflection, which is how to summarize the data, and reminiscence, how to browse the data. So I'm going to go through a few more slides before I finish up, and that'll be showing some of the examples. Okay, so examples. Prototype search engines. Isn't it just horrible, okay? This is a prototype search engine. Looks a little bit like your flight booking system, okay? But it's a way of identifying all the different things we were doing, the concepts, the times, the locations, the weather, as a starting point. Nobody will ever use this. It's an academic research tool. But this is getting more interesting in terms of reflecting. This is another version of that color visualization, which has every minute of the day with a dominant color. Go back to any day, week, month, year of your life, and you can start to see what you were doing and the colors of that. So you can glance at this. For you, it doesn't mean that much, but for me, given that it's my data, I can understand when I'm using computers, when I'm at home, when I'm in social environments from the colors of my life. And it's a very nice way of just glancing at it. More quantified self-type reflection. This is where we map galvanic skin response from a smartwatch, which is an indicator of stress level, to what you were doing, and then be able to identify your most stressful time periods. And this is one of the examples from about 6 months ago. I was in Tokyo giving a talk at the European Commission. You see the stress level goes way up? I was giving a talk at exactly that point, okay? So we can start mapping back what makes us stressed in our daily life. Okay? And that's kind of interesting to see, because other points like here, getting stressed, waiting for queuing for the train because the trains were cancelled because of a typhoon, that makes sense. But here, getting stressed because I was actually on the plane eating food. Why was that stressful? Because I didn't have enough space. And that kind of analysis is really interesting to see. Then in terms of reminiscence, building systems that support people sharing their digital memories. And this is one of the systems that we built, which allows us to view, analyze, zoom in, zoom out, and share our memories. So, some final thoughts before we finish up, because I'm almost out of time. How does this relate to biohacking? That's a very, very good point. It's at the very, very early stages. We've gone down the route in our research of building platform technologies, okay? We don't even know how we're going to use all of this data, how we're going to use this technology, but unless we can build the tools to extract value from images and sound, extract value from the sensor data, you can't do it anyway, okay? So we start off the process. There's a lot of research and development still to do. We still haven't built, if you look at all the interfaces I showed you of all the systems, we still haven't built a proper real-time Google Glass type querying mechanism. Okay? And until we get, maybe 20 years later, implanted devices that can actually interact with our thought process, we're still stuck using a Google Glass kind of device. And that's the next step. There's no adequate device. I said this is for sale by a Swedish company. I wear this bigger one here. It's not okay. It's not acceptable. It only captures an image every 30 seconds. That's not enough to extract your life experience. Okay? How do we extract more detail? There's no device to do this yet. Privacy. Okay? I'm sure somebody has a question about privacy down there. Life logging looks out. Quantified self looks in. With quantified self, you're analyzing yourself with smartwatches, with analyzing your blood sugar levels, whatever it is. With life logging, you're typically examining what you have experienced, which means that life logging by default looks out. Cameras, microphones, understanding your life experience by looking at other people. Okay? And that's an interesting privacy challenge. We have one slide about privacy coming up next. And then the last slide. Trust for sharing and storage. Who do you trust with this data? Do you trust Google to have all your data? Facebook? Do you trust a new organization? Who do you trust with this data? Because we believe that it's very, very difficult for a person in their home environment to keep this data safe. Be it curious partners, be it ex-partners wanting to hack into your data, it happens, it happened to me. Be it environments or companies, be it governments, whatever, trying to access your data. This is an interesting challenge because never before has there been this much data. This is a problem, okay? What happens if the police look at my data and see how often I was driving using a mobile phone? That's in there, okay? I shouldn't do it, and I don't do it very often, but I've done it. We've all done it, okay? And then if that gets pulled out, can I get into trouble for that? So trust for sharing and storage. Can you share it with somebody else? Should you by default share this with your partner? Oh, you give me your access to your LifeLog. You see my LifeLog, I'll see your LifeLog. Isn't this great? No, it's not. Been there, done that, been asked the questions, why is your LifeLog turned off? Okay. The phone's out, why is your LifeLog off? Okay, this doesn't work, okay? And the way we work is we think about getting data now, okay? Because you can't go back and get data. If it's easy to spend $179 to buy this device, clip it on when you go out and about, why not? Okay? You may not have the software yet, the company doesn't have the software yet, but you can never go back and generate this data. This data can only be generated from the point where you start recording. Hence, we started 9 years ago gathering data. And only recently have we got the software to extract value from that. New tools and software will extract value later. Last slide, privacy. Yes, of course. Issues about security cameras in environments, issues about me wearing a camera when I come here, people getting annoyed, asking me to take it off. Been here, done that, take it off if somebody asks me to, that's no problem. But we've also seen this as an opportunity. How can you build software that actually inherently supports privacy awareness? So we have software that actually analyzes every image for faces, then tries to, it doesn't work very well yet, but tries to see, is this one of your friends? Okay? On the assumption that your friends, it's okay to have their face in your data. If it's not your friend, it gets blurred out. If it is your friend, by a listing of friends' faces, then you can see your friend. Okay? And this happens at query time, so there's a filter. The data gets stored always in its raw form in the database, but as you access it, the system decides what you can see and what you can't see from your own LifeLog. It's actually quite an important point that you're involved in, you have a LifeLog for many years, you have a partner, you break up with your partner, should you have access to all the data with your partner in it or not? Okay? That kind of question, how do we solve that? Okay, I'm over time, thank you very much. I will say there's a book called LifeLogging Personal Big Data. Everybody has a book that's talking here, I think, but this one's free. Just do a Google search. It's an information scientist's book, okay? It's not a quantified self book. So it's built for information scientists, but it's very easy to read and it's a free PDF download. Any questions, please let me know. If anybody's really interested in working with us in our research center on this, let me know as well, okay? Thank you.